From Spruce Labs, I'm Taylor Romero, your host of the Guest First Movement podcast, an audio and video showcase dedicated to the philosophy of the guest experience, to retail, and how it can be made or broken by technology. On today's podcast, we're going to be talking about the power of voice. So before we get to voice, it would make sense to start with some of the earlier computer interfaces and how they progressed to now what is becoming one of the most intuitive interfaces that could possibly exist. Starting with the idea of punch cards and tape decks and these types of things, what you're inputting in the computer is so far from what you're conceptually trying to accomplish that you really have to be an expert and have a lot of domain knowledge in the punch card system and how it works and how to make that translate into calculations and operations. Some of the first consumer-facing technology, as far as computers are concerned, had a keyboard. Keyboard's a little bit more intuitive than a punch card in that you know that the word or the letter on the keyboard, pressing it is going to be reflected on the screen. So much more intuitive there. It's a one-for-one for what you're trying to actually accomplish when it comes to inputting characters, inputting letters, numbers. But what's not so intuitive about a computer that's keyboard only are all the commands that you need to run to get it to do things. And from an average user's perspective, what that would mean, what it means for every user essentially, is that you have to memorize the commands that you need to get your computer to do things. And for the average consumer, there's just flat out not enough time and not enough brain space to be remembering all the commands that you need to execute on a computer that only has a keyboard. We all know about Xerox inventing the mouse and Apple taking the mouse and bringing it into their early Apple computers. And the mouse added one more level of intuitiveness in that it didn't require you to remember commands, because now you could use a graphical user interface, the GUI, G-U-I, the GUI, to move a mouse cursor and click on things. And that eliminated the need for the memorization of commands. And now you more or less just have to remember what you want and to click through the interface to find what you want. Then the next level of interface hit, and that's touch devices. And a touch device, it needs a keyboard, a soft keyboard. So when I say soft keyboard, I just mean the keyboard on your iPhone or your Android. That's not the hard keyboard, the one that you're actually typing or you can physically feel. But it did away with the mouse. So now instead of having this device sit between, let's take a step back. You want to open Excel. You have the thought, the desire, the intent to open. That has to be executed through the coordination of your arm and your hand. Then that is passed on to a mouse, which translates that to coordinates on a screen. And so in order to get what you want, you're actually going through a lot of intermediate steps. You're going through your arm, the mouse as an input to a mouse on a screen that then is translating movements and clicks. You move to a touch screen and you get the mouse out of the way, and now you're actually able to touch what you want. So I've got a 2-year-old daughter named Juniper, and she understands touch screens. She never would understand a mouse, doesn't even understand a keyboard, but it's very intuitive for a person to actually touch the thing that they want. And if you get like a theme here, what is happening is we're eliminating middlemen and getting closer and closer and closer to the action or the activity that we want to accomplish. But it's going to go further. You've heard a lot about Alexa, Siri, Google Home. All of these devices have in fact now eliminated the need to touch and replaced it with what we all do, what most of us do to live and to communicate and to survive today. And that's speech, words, voice, sounds. And now, and here's the paradox of it, is sounds are now so intuitive for us that a machine that's driven from sound is in fact one of the most intuitive machines that exist today. Here as an example, my 2-year-old daughter knows if we go to our Alexa and we say, Alexa, play Baba Black Sheep, her hands down favorite song, she knows it'll play Baba Black Sheep. And so what she does, she's not quite 2 yet, and so what she does is she walks up to the Alexa and she goes, Alexa, Baba. Not clear enough for Alexa to understand, but what it does is it illustrates that a child now knows how to command a machine before they even have mastery of their own vocal cords, their own ability to enunciate and to speak. That is mind-blowing because it shows that the human brain actually is developing its intent and its idea of desire and opinions and moving things into action separately from coordination, the ability to move. And now with voice, we actually have the first machines that humans can operate before they can operate themselves, which is mind-blowing. But here's the paradox. Since we did away with the user interface, we're back to commands. We're back to the place where you don't really know what your Alexa can do because you don't have a graphical user interface to look and to move and to tap. So if you have an Alexa or you have a HomePod, if you have these devices, you're probably receiving weekly emails. I get one every week from Amazon that says all the things Alexa can do starting today. And do you know how many I remember? Absolutely none. Which brings me to a really interesting quote that I'm going to entirely butcher from Steve Wozniak. And the essence of what he has said is that machines shouldn't have to learn, or what he essentially said is you shouldn't have to learn machines. The machines should learn you. And that is clearly violated today with Alexa in its entirety, with all voice interfaces. Is you're not speaking to this machine like you speak to a human. You're memorizing commands, set an alarm, add to my grocery list. Certain things you have to remember. Now, this will get better with time, and it will eventually very soon come to the point where you can interface with a machine in the same way you can with a human. And in fact, there are already examples of prototypes built today. So if you're watching this video, pause right now and Google Duplex. That is, go to Google, Bing, your favorite search engine, and search for Google space Duplex, Duplex, and watch the demo to get an idea of where voice is headed in the future. It's going to be a significant improvement, obviously, on what we have today. But until we achieve that type of natural language processing, we're not going to be to the point where a voice machine is as effective as a touch machine. And to dig in a little bit more about natural language processing, you're going to hear the term NLP. We mentioned that during our intro about some of the things that we're going to be talking about. NLP, natural language processing, is just the science around taking natural language. That's the key. It's not LP, language, natural language processing, taking natural language, processing it, converting it into actions that are being invoked on a machine. And until the machine knows the people, and even though you're going to look at this Google Duplex demo and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, here's something else to consider. That Google themselves, as far as the most popular search engine in the world, is not even very good at this yet. That is, and here's the thought experiment you can do. When you use Google, are you searching for something how you would search for it? Or a lot of times, are you searching for it for how you know Google will find it? And are you kind of manipulating your search terms and keywords in your search to get the search engine to return results you find more relevant? That's changing, and that's getting better, and Google's getting better and better and better at it. But it's still the case that the search engines themselves require you to understand them. When an expert search engine user is no better than a first-time search engine user, that's when we've nailed it. But I tell you what, I got friends that when I can't find something, I ask them to help me actually search for it, and they can work Google in a way to find results that I can't find. That tells us that we're not to natural language processing truly yet when it comes to just search engines. So we got a little bit to go, but it's getting there fast. And so here's where it gets exciting, and here's where there's a lot of unknowns still. For me, and I think the retail industry as a whole, is what does voice mean for retail? Thought experiment. You put an Alexa on the floor of your retailer. You start issuing it commands. Is that weird? Wouldn't you prefer maybe that the Alexa goes in the back, or the Siri HomePod goes in the back of the store so guests don't hear you issuing the machine commands? Because doesn't that kind of open up some weird new privacy security issues? And it's almost not quite what you think, though, because even machines today that are operated by voice incorporate machine learning to actually learn your voice. So here's a really good example. Here, Kyle, check this out. So we all know that with Google, you can do, come here, check this out. You can do, hey Siri, or hey Google, or Alexa. The concern is in a retail environment that somebody would just start issuing this machine commands. But I want to show you something that you might not have known. So Kyle's going to ask, he's going to say, hey Siri, what time is it? All right, give it a shot.
Hey Siri, what time is it?
Nothing. Watch this. Hey Siri, what time is it?
It's 1:05 p.m.
You might not have known this, but your phone is actually learning your voice every time you talk to it. And now my phone won't even respond to commands from my wife, only responds to commands from me because it's learned my voice through neural networks, machine learning. Definitely want to check out the episodes we have talking about those things. So the security in retail is a little bit different than you might imagine with voice commands, because people aren't just going to be able to issue an Alexa voice command and have it listen, or your phone a voice command. It's going to be tied to the voices of the people who use it. And but what it does do is it creates this weird environment where the underside of your business is showing. So like, for an example, a lot of your business is a facade. the showroom, the retail space. It's beautiful, it's clean, everything where it's supposed to be. The back office, I'm willing to bet you don't put the same time into cleaning any of that up. So the idea of voice in retail, as far as it stands on the retail floor, I don't know. It's a TBD. We're running actually tests right now where we're going to give people the ability to issue commands to their phone via voice in a retail environment. We're going to see if people actually do it, because something tells me that if I'm issuing commands to a machine, that I probably want to do it in the back office. And why is that? Because a lot of times when I'm issuing commands to a human, I don't want to do that in front of guests either. The question is, does it change when we're talking to a machine? And here's something interesting. I know it does change when you're talking to a machine. Your patience. You've called into a bank and it said, say what? Speak the number that you mean. And 1 for an operator, 2 for sales, 3, and you're going 4. I'm sorry, I do not understand. We have much less patience with machines, and voice is going to pull a lot of that out, because very quickly someone's going to become impatient. If I say, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, probably going to repeat yourself. We're probably going to even work together to make sure I hear you next time. But to have a machine that's going to stand there and not make any effort to hear you any better, and the fact that it is not a human but a machine, is going to allow you to reach your frustration point much faster. So there's a lot of sensitivity here about how we build these voice systems, because they have to be intuitive, they have to actually understand natural language, and they have to work, because if they don't, people are much more likely to drop using the machine than they will drop working with the person. So overall, here's kind of the conclusion, that there is no conclusion, that we really need to spend time as retailers and as an industry not thinking about voice as much as testing out voice. And like I said, we're testing out voice at Spruce very soon to do very, very common, very repetitive tasks that generally require someone to interface with the point of sale or to interface with the booking system or their scheduling system. We're going to be attempting to move these things to a voice interface to see what impact it has. And my gut tells me back office stuff is going to change forever. My gut also tells me front side retail stuff probably not going to change too much, except for what should happen is, now that the interface for a lot of these tasks is voice and it can be done quicker with just a command, it should allow us for more time with the guest, more time out front. And that's probably the best way to think about it. We're not going to want people to walk into our store and just start talking with a machine, at least not yet. And it will happen, but it will definitely happen as more of an entertainment piece than an actual useful piece, at least for the next probably 15, 20 years. So we have time now to think about, how do we augment our teams and the things they're doing using voice? Ultimate goal, putting the guest first. And we talked about voice, but there's one more interface coming, and that is direct brain to computer interface. And that's far enough out that we're actually just not going to talk about it right now, but look for that coming in the next decade. Thanks for joining us. You can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Spotify. If you prefer video, you can check us out on Vimeo and then YouTube. And we'd love to hear your thoughts about the Guest First movement. So definitely connect with us on Instagram and Twitter at SpruceBot. And then lastly, go ahead and shoot us an email at social@sprucelabs.ai so we can continue this conversation together. All right, until next time.